puts inside of each one of us from birth the particular purpose and dream that He wants you to fulfill.
Welcome to Storypower TV. I am your host, Loren Norris, and I really appreciate you being here today. I encourage you to hit that like, share, and subscribe. And if you're on OBBM Network, make sure you send a comment to the bottom and let people know this is a great network to watch shows like this on so that they can subscribe themselves. I love meeting people from all walks of life, from all over the place, from all over the world, and from all kinds of academic and intellectual backgrounds. From time to time, I stumble across people who are looking at the world through a lens that I have never looked at the world. You know, I'm a storyteller. I coach people storytelling. I tell them to tell stories. But most of the time, all of the time, I encourage my clients to tell their own stories and tell real ones. Now, I love a good fiction book. Most of the ones that I've read and enjoyed were Frank Peretti's. So I'm not a big collector of fiction. If you went through the 22 bookshelves in my library, there's only Frank Peretti fiction books. I just don't collect them. I've never been a big fan of fiction because it challenges the way I think. So imagine my surprise when I met somebody who has a similar worldview, a similar background, and a calling to produce fiction. That all of a sudden made me stop and think, tell me more. So here in studio with me today is Helen Matejik, and we're going to talk about what it means to write Christian fiction and why. Helen, welcome to the studio. Thanks for being here.
It's nice to be here.
So, same question that I ask every guest in the studio for Storypower TV. You ready? Now, nobody's revealed this big secret to you, right? It's a secret question nobody knows?
I have no idea what you're going to ask me.
Okay.
Should I run?
Who is Jesus to you?
Oh, gosh. You know, that's a difficult question to ask, because He is everything to me. And the tears are because I'm not sad, but I'm so full of joy to have Him as part of my life. In fact, I can tell you just a recent wonderful story if we got the time. My husband just came home from Indonesia.
It's a dangerous place to be as a Christian.
And he came back 3 days before we traveled here with terrible jet lag. And so he's not moving the way he should, and we needed to get on this plane to get to Texas. And, you know, he had been driving, and that was a scary kind of thing. He's a very good driver, but with jet lag, he kept trying to nod out. Well, we just barely made the plane coming here as a result. And when we get to the checkout counter to check in our luggage, the woman says to us, "Oh, you're late." And I said, "Yes, we are." And she said, "Well, I don't know if your luggage is going to be here and meet you at the airport where you go. You might have to get it the next day." Well, that worried me, but, you know, it was just the big luggage. Unbeknownst to me, my husband had checked in with his jet lag, wasn't thinking, checked in my carry-on bag, which had my pajamas, which had my toothbrush, which had everything in it I would need in case my other luggage didn't make it. And so I'm on the plane and thinking, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? You know, I don't know Texas. Should we rent a car? I'll have to buy all this stuff if it doesn't come. And I finally said, Lord, help. Lord, I really need your help. And I got this vision of the cross, gave me this cross. And I felt this peace come over me. And I said, wow, this is really wonderful. Thank you, Lord, for keeping me in peace. Well, later on during the flight, I got out of peace and I prayed again. And this time he answered me with, there's a special code word between the two of us, or it's really a code number. And I saw that number as clear as day. And I thought, oh my gosh, the luggage made the plane. So I was in peace all the rest of the flight. When we got to the airport, sure enough, the luggage came on the plane with us. And so I love God. I love Jesus and having that kind of intimacy with him so that you don't have to fret. When things go wrong, he's with you. He'll carry you through the storms, big or small. And this, for many people, probably is a small storm, but it still was. I'm going to be in a different state. No toothpaste, no pajamas, no this, nothing. And so it was quite a wonderful thing to be able to have that interaction with my Lord. And that's a daily thing, to keep that intimate communication with him. And I just love him.
Okay, so the follow-up question is always the same for everybody. You're going to think this is a trick question, but it's not. It's the same. It's the same question I ask everybody. Why should I care who Jesus is to you?
Well, Loren, I don't know why you should care, but I do know that those that don't know Christ or Jesus should care. The Bible does say, and Jesus said it, these are his very own words. He said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one goes to the Father, and the Father's in heaven. No one goes to the Father except through me, by me. So it's very important to know that when you die, and we don't have any guarantees. You can walk out your door today and die, get hit by a truck. I'm not wishing that on anyone. I don't want people going out and getting hit by a truck. But we don't have any guarantees for how long we're going to live on this planet. And it's very important to know where you're going to spend eternity. It's a very long time. It's much longer than our time on this earth. So the important thing is to have that assurance. And so if you believe in Jesus Christ and ask him to be your Lord and Savior, he will come into your heart. You have to believe, you have to speak it, but you have to believe it. And when he comes into your heart, there is such a transformation. Your life is never the same. I remember when he came into my heart, my life before was very dark. And when he came into my life, I just saw things with a different lens, a different perspective. Life was better. I wanted to live it, whereas before I didn't want to live it. And it's different for different people. He knows each one of us. We're all unique. But the bottom line is, if you do not know Jesus and you die, there are only two places you go. And almost every religion, not just Christianity, believes that. So there is a hell and there is a heaven. Where would you like to spend it?
So obviously you've got a little preaching in your family and a little preaching in your bloodline. Your husband being a missionary, and you were a missionary for many years too, right?
Well, not a missionary per se, maybe a missionary around home, but I've gone on mission trips. My husband is he's an evangelist, so he's an itinerant evangelistic preacher. And we travel from different churches, mainly right now up in Maine, though Indonesia, which I unfortunately couldn't go with him. I've been to Nepal. I'm very much involved with mission pastors and missionaries. So, yes, I've been around that, and I would imagine that preaching is in my family, now that you put it that way.
Okay, so given that staunch view of the gospel, that dedication, devotion to absolute truth, what inspired you to write fiction?
It wasn't me.
My idea.
It wasn't my idea. I do like stories. I love listening to you, Loren. You are one of the best storytellers that I know, but I do like a good story. Most people do. We retain stories. We retain information when they're told to us in story form. Much easier, and kids love stories. And being a parent, I've read stories to my son, and I used to be very dramatic in doing that. And now my son, he's involved in theater and he's a playwright. So, it just was the upbringing and the creativity that I would say.
Those are the seeds you planted.
That came through me. But in terms of me writing fiction, I knew I was a good writer. You know, when I was in college, I had professors that would just rave about my writing, but it was non-fictional. And a lot of it was research paper. I was in the sciences. But they said, you should write papers. You should do this. You do this really well. And then, I dabbled and I took a creative writing course and I got accolades for that. And I thought, gee, that's interesting, but that gave me the points I needed. I wanted to go into the sciences, and that was my direction. But one day, when being a Christian and loving the Lord and really wanting to fill my son with things that are good and healthy and wholesome, he came home with a book, and he was really excited. And he's saying, Mom, look at what my friend gave me. They're passing it around in school. All the kids are reading it. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe it's a C.S. Lewis book, some of those other books.
Honestly, just to have them excited about reading is a huge win, especially in today's world when you're dealing with social media and, an attention span not as long as their shoelaces.
That's right. And I think it's very important for parents to really develop that, I would say, focus, develop that in their children. It's very important because kids that read have a greater vocabulary. I can remember when, some kids came to the house and my son, his name is Vinny, was talking to them, and I happened to walk by the bedroom door while they were in there, and I heard one kid say, Vinny, can't you ever say anything we can understand? Because the vocabulary was much broader than most kids. So reading is very important. So when my son brought this book home, excited, and put it in my hand, I was startled. It was, it was very dark. The cover was dark, and the word sorcerer jumped out at me. And I looked at the back of it, and, it was really a book about good witches and bad witches. And as Christians, we know that there's no such thing as good witches. And it's not to disparage a person who thinks they're a good witch, but that force behind witchcraft is the same.
It's almost like saying good cancer, bad cancer.
Exactly. You're going to live a little longer with this one and not that one, right? Or something, something of the sort. But anyways, that caused me, it broke my heart and caused me to really cry out to God, because I then sat down and I read the book myself. And the reason why I did was I had Googled online. I went online to see what other Christians were saying about the book. And I found that there were two camps. There was one camp of Christian leaders that I strongly follow and respect, and that said, oh, fine, let your kids read it. It's the classic good against evil. And then there was this other camp of Christians that I love and respect, saying, oh no, don't let your kids read this. This is full of magic and witchcraft and so forth. So I sat back in my chair and I thought, well, which is it? So I read the book. And I'll say it's the camp that said, don't let your kids read the book. It is really full of magic and witchcraft and so forth. Good witches versus bad witches and so forth. And they make, the values in the book are as what we would want our kids to ingest as well. But the thing about this book is the writer, the author of the book, was amazing. And, I've read many, many stories to my son from Christian writers. And this one was very outstanding. It was superior, and I could understand why the kids enjoyed, this particular book. So I cried out to the Lord. I thought, oh my gosh, she's such a good writer. We need Christian writers that can write as well as this gal did. And it was after a week of travail, just pouring out my heart, that I heard God say to me. And there was no denying it was his voice, because I would never have said this to myself. Yes, honey, and you're one. And when he said that, I panicked, and I said, I gave him every reason why. No, I don't want to write fiction. I never have written fiction. I don't know the first thing about fiction, and she's really good, So
who am I competing with exactly?
Exactly, So I gave him all the reasons why he chose the wrong person. I really wanted good Christian writers to write this fiction. Unbeknownst to me, I think God puts inside of each one of us from birth the particular purpose and dream that he wants you to fulfill.
Right.
And I didn't know that was inside of me. It wasn't until, he had told me that. Then later I went to a Christian conference. Sean Boltz was there. Now, Sean Boltz is a very well-known prophetic person. And he was there. He had just written one of his books, and I was standing in the line to have that book signed. And he wasn't giving prophetic words to anyone. So somebody tapped me on the shoulder. They went to talk to me. I turned around, and he was signing my book. And he went, "Whoa." So I turned around. I was a Southern Baptist. So if you get a prophetic word, it didn't mean good. It was all your dirty laundry. And I'm thinking, oh, no, this is not good. But what he said to me was, God put creative language in you. And he put that in you before you were born. So you were born with creative language. He wrote a prayer in the book, how he felt, the prayer was, hey, God, pursue her until she writes those books, But I went home and I put that book on the shelf, and I thought that was really nice. God had already spoken to me. He spoke to me, but I did not feel anywhere near ready to write fiction books. You want to know why I started?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was getting involved with Summer and you. I got involved with Summer's program, and she looked at me, another woman that really hears from the Lord, and she says, you're supposed to write that book, because I'd mentioned to her about the book and so forth, but I was in her program to learn to speak. And when she said that, it was like this missile hit my chest, and I knew it was God. And it wasn't that she was the first person. It was in prayer over the past couple of months prior to that God was really saying, you remember the book, you remember the book.
Yeah.
But I wanted
to, 2 or 3, right?
That's right, and here we are. So I did write that book, and there are more books coming.
And so one of the things that I've heard you say time and again is there's a need for a harvest, but the writers who are surrendered to God and competent at writing and capable of writing the kind of fiction that challenges some of the best novels that are out there, C.S. Lewis, R. Tolkien, the list goes on. But some of those books are so dated. The allegories still hold true because they're anchored in biblical truth, but when you try to fast forward and overlay those metaphors or those allegories with today's life, a lot of the young people just don't get it. Which is ironic, because on the one hand you've got the Chronicles of Narnia, the Screwtape Letters, books like that really harken back to a day of kings and kingdoms and the jungles and the jungle wild, et cetera, et cetera. And then today you've got kids that are playing video games of jungles and dragons and lions and tigers and bears, oh my. Mm-hmm. And so in a fictitious fantasy way, they connect with that world. Mm-hmm. But it's almost as if the enemy has used that overlay to say, all of this is fantasy. I remember hearing a scholar one time say, what we today call our faith will one day be called a myth. And we only know that because the myths today were the faiths of their day. And I look at that and I think, well, if the analogy holds true that our enemy is the dragon, or our enemy walks around as a roaring lion, or our enemy is a liar, or our enemy represents, name it. And we fast forward 20 years. Will the enemy look the same but be doing something different, or will the enemy look different but be doing the same destructive work?
He's a chameleon.
And so he'll look different, but he'll be doing the same thing. He only has one purpose: kill, steal, and destroy.
That's right.
So when fiction writers move into a kingdom mentality, or vice versa, kingdom mentality authors move into fiction writing for youth and young adults, what's the driving principle that they've got to adhere to have the integrity of the faith and the richness of fantasy and fiction that stimulates the mind of young people today?
Oh gosh, J. Loren, that is a challenging question. There's a lot of depth in that. I think that first of all, you have to understand the culture of the kids.
Right.
You know, so I think that that's the very first thing that one needs to have in order to even consider approaching it. And as you said, they spend a lot of time in these fictional worlds, you know, and holograms. I heard that those are, those are in the works, you know. So
holograms and VR goggles and
all of those things,
all those things that stimulate the brain to tell you you're in a real world, when the physical, tangible world is nothing like what you're sensing.
Right. And so what I really think, you know, is we are wired to be creative, but we're wired to really understand creativity in a very, some people might say, mystical, supernatural way.
Right.
When, when you are a person that is a seer, seers in the Old Testament.
Right.
How did they see the Word of God? Well, he planted images in their mind. And so those images are powerful. Images are powerful. And so as a writer, you have to understand God's creativity. You have to understand the Bible so that you don't cross lines. Right. And yet make it exciting. And for me, my challenge is to write books that not only Christian children will read, but my hope is that it will break through the barrier to kids.
It'll be so good people who are not seeking Christ will find him in there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, there's, in my books, I don't mention Jesus Christ. I don't mention prayer per se, but I have built into the structure things that a Christian definitely reading the book would understand completely.
Yeah, it's kind of an if you know, you know kind of a code.
Exactly. If you know, you know. I love it. That's exactly what it is. And if you don't, you see what you receive from it is that there is this good force that can help you if you call on this wonderful force. Right. The Christ figure. My book is character. He's a white eagle, and he's called Elistron. And I came up with that name, E-L, right. For Christians. We know that is another form, a Hebrew form of God.
Elohim.
Elohim. And astron means star. It's a Greek word, or Latin, I believe. It's Latin for star. So I kind of combined the two, star of God.
Okay, obviously his star, but Star of God.
Star of God. So that was my creative way of doing that. So he would be the figure in that, but certainly in a way that doesn't come across as preachy to children or young adults that read the book and will put it down because, kids don't want to be. They're not stupid. Sometimes we think that they are.
Yeah.
But they're not,
and they don't because they don't know everything. That they don't know some things really well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But they love stories. It's wired in us.
That's our human nature.
That is. Jesus spoke in stories, parables, and so forth. We love stories as humans, and that's part of our DNA. That's right, our human nature. But the DNA comes from God, So it's very important to write books that appeal to this generation in such a way that instills proper values without it being preachy and over the board. And you've got to make it exciting.
I understand you help coach people to do that. People who want to write, and people who maybe they've thought about fiction, but they haven't written one yet, or they're not even sure how to write an outline or design a cover or brand the concept or even test the concept to see if it carries water. We've got about 2 minutes left. Can you tell me how people can reach you if they're interested in knowing more about the book, if they want to get that for their kids, or how they can get into your program to work on developing their own writing skill and talent and get themselves published?
Yeah, so you can go to Kingdom Authors Arise, as I'm looking for kingdom authors to arise and infiltrate that dark arena. So kingdomauthorsarise.com. And that is my website, my webpage. You'll learn everything you need to learn about me. And you'll have some guidelines, some free gifts. And if you're interested in my program, all of the information there will be there as well.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. Anything I failed to ask that I should have?
Oh, I think you covered quite a bit. You covered
good.
quite a bit. It was very good.
Yeah.
So anyone watching the program that has a book inside of you and you love to tell stories, I'd love to hear from you. My passion is just really, it is a dark arena. And as you mentioned earlier, I see it as a harvest field. You know, when Jesus talked about the harvest is vast, but the harvesters are few. So you could take that in terms of the harvesters of wholesome fiction for our children. Very, very few. And so we really need to, as Lance Wallnau would say, take that mountain, that creative mountain, and push back the enemy and bring in the light. So I'm looking forward to working with people who have a heart.
That URL one more time.
kingdomauthorsarise.com.
Very good. I very much appreciate you being here, Helen. Thanks for sharing your time with us today.
You're welcome.
And if you're still watching Storypower TV, I want you to like and share and subscribe and let people know. And if you're an aspiring author, or you've thought about writing a book, or you thought, I love the fantasy books, the fantasy novels, all these vampire novels and all that stuff, but I really want one that honors Jesus and not the vampires, Jesus and not the devil, the kingdom and not the ways of this world, then dive in, take a look, and Kingdom Authors Arise is a great place for you to get started. Engage yourself in the gift that God's given you and the calling, the mantle that He's placed on your life. And if you're still asking the question, does God even know that I exist? Here's my challenge for you. I dare you to ask Him, God, do you love me? You might be surprised with the answer you get. You might be surprised you get an answer at all. But here's the promise. If you ask Him, He will answer you. That's not my promise. That's His. I challenge you to ask Him that question. I'm J. Loren Norris for Storypower TV, and tell it like it is. Have a blessed day.
Everything about this event has just changed me to push into my purpose.
The transformation has been miraculous.
You don't have time. People are dying. They are dying spiritually. They are dying physically. They are wrecked emotionally. We don't have time.
I went from broken and unworthiness, feeling completely extraordinary, and ready to move into my season.
Every single time I come to this conference, the Holy Spirit shows up and flips my world upside down. This is a place where we get to rise up, where we get to be better husbands, where we get to be better fathers.
I'm completely changed. The woman I was 7 months ago is not the woman I am today.
It's time for you guys to step across the threshold. This is your call right now. It's not 37 years from now.
So let me explain to you what salvation is. Healing, deliverance, prosperity, righteousness. Until you know you're as righteous as God, you're going to continuously try to get what you've already got.
And if you're a man and you think this is just for women, you need to rethink that. A lot of us men are like lone rangers, so we think we can do it all on our own, but really that's not how God designed us. And we thrive when we're in relationship and with other men.
I am no longer confused about God loving me and calling me to a higher.
But you don't know, I failed 7 times. Well, baby, let's go for number 8. Fail quicker next time, okay? Because if we fail quicker, we can do the thing that don't work. The quicker we get to the thing that works. Somebody talk to me today.
Are you okay with being in the same place you are right now? Do you want to move forward in your life? Do you want your life to change? Then you have to do something to change it.
And I think that we are well on our way to creating this revolution, if you would, this movement, this revival.
I get to take that and have that power to go home and be with my kids and my husband and to be unwavered with who I'm called to be and the royalty that I get to live into.
And I just want to do so much more now without any fear.
Because every one of you individually is a weapon. And our job equipping the saints, what God has called Summer to do, is to prepare you to go out there like a laser.
You fight for this. You fight for this. Because God rarely calls the qualified, but He qualifies the call.
Someone like Summer who believes do not go where the path may lead, go where there's no path and leave a trail. Because you're in alignment with someone who masters what she does, and she's committed herself to helping you to master your voice and your story, and reminding you that that story that you're sitting on, somebody is waiting on.
Because this is where we get to be lit up to go and change the world.
If you have a hunger, you have a hunger, and you have a hunger, and you're like, yes, I just want God to touch me. It's why I came here. I don't want to leave without it. I want to go out in the world so filled up with Jesus that if it unzip me, Jesus is just going to pop out. I'm ready. I'm ready. My soul and my spirit and my mind are strong. And I want to go out in the world, and I want to be a bold, unstoppable force for God.
Taking Jay Loren's Storypower Masterclass. It was amazing. I took away so much information. One of the things that I really enjoyed being formally trained in media many years ago is the call to action. I will use that with every speaking engagement, and I'm so grateful that Loren just spoke truth into his teachings, and he is a true professional. And I know this might sound weird, but I've been taking certifications in different classes over the years, and Loren is not boring. I can't even believe I got here at 9, and then the class went by so fast that I was like, it's time to go already? And I was shocked that it was time to go already. So it's an awesome class. You're going to enjoy it, I promise.